Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And this is our last but not least, I should say, our final installment of readings from the book Darkness Most Fowl, which is a book about birds, but every type of bird imaginable, every type of horror imaginable. And this session will not disappoint. If you missed the other two readings, shame on you. How dare you? The audacity. No, I'm kidding. You can watch them in my YouTube channel. You can watch them as much as you would like. Share them with your friends. Let me know what you think. If you have a thought about a particular author, let me know and I will pass it along to them. Those of you who have been with us, for the last two installments and are here for the third, thank you so much. And I wish I could give you a trophy or a badge or something. We greatly appreciate your support with this. Those of you who are here through Facebook, through YouTube right now, please feel free to post comments during the readings. Our authors love to see your positive comments coming through. And if you have questions, we'll certainly be able to answer those. Those of you people from the future who are watching later, you're still invited to comment and ask questions. I can certainly forward questions along to an author. So don't feel like you've missed out on the conversation. We do want you to join. We want to hear your voices. And authors in the studio right now, please feel free to comment. I'm going to be posting your links to social media and books that you have available. But if there's anything you wish to add, please feel free to do so. As always, we're going to start with the readings, and then there'll be time for questions and comments, and for the authors to tell us where to find them next. I love this book. I really, really adore this book. And my favorite aspect of it is just how diverse it is. Not only do we have writers from various parts of the globe, we have all kinds of horror. We have all kinds of, just different takes on birds and the theme of this book. And it's so exciting to me. So I'm going to bring our first author onto our stage, and I'm going to give his official bio. Di Booth is an indie author and editor who loves wild beaches and exploring dark places. When not writing, he enjoys making zines and DJs at Last Rites, the best and only goth club in Chester, UK, which he runs with his boyfriend. You can read his prize-winning stories in volumes from the Deadlands, Aegis Press, Sands Press, Air and Nothings Press, and many others. His books, including his curse novella Cool S, are available online, and he's currently working on a queer coming-of-age folk horror novella. And I love folk horror, so I'm going to keep my eyes out for that one. While he is reading, I am going to be putting links into the comment box. So, Di, go ahead whenever you're ready. You can begin reading.
Thank you very much, Elaine, and thanks so much for organising this and for editing the book. So, my story is Little Gibbet, which I'll read now. I just want to do a bit of a content warning for dead birds and transphobia, the true horror. Hey, Christy. So here we go. The birds keep her awake. Every night they trill far later into the early hours than Claire can remember ever noticing before. The dawn chorus wakes her, gasping from dread-steeped dreams as Em snores on serenely beside her. One evening, returning from work, she steps over a corpse on the path, laid out like a crucifixion. A dead baby bird, skinned over eyes bulging, pulped guts pushed out from flesh, translucent as candle wax. Probably fell from its nest, says Em, and then a cat got it. She gives up cleaning the car. It's because you park under the tree, Em says, but Claire cannot see any birds bombarding next door's rusty old Fiesta, which sits parked beneath the tree next tree along, whilst rows of pigeons camp out, cooing conspiratorially to squirt turds with what look like premeditated glee onto her once pristine Tesla. I think next door has trained them. Em laughs. Then she sees Claire's expression and she stops. Next door feeds them all the time. The only time those birds come over our side of the fence is to eat the buds off the flowers. They ruin those hanging baskets. Those cost a fortune as well. And now we're going to have to shell out for plastic ones. I've seen them, Isabel, talking to them, whispering like fucking drag Snow White. I swear there's even more rubbish in that garden than last week. More bones. I found chicken bones in our yard. Where are they getting the bones from? Why doesn't that one have any social media? Sharon did say, Em starts cautiously, Izzy's had a bit of trouble with getting harassed online, which, you know, isn't really on, no matter who you are. Oh, Sharon said, did she? Em winces. I just bumped into her yesterday evening outside. She said she's glad they have another lesbian couple next door, even if we won't be living here once it's all ready to let. Another lesbian couple? Claire's voice is tight, high. Her eyes dart, fingers pressed bloodless around her coffee mug. How dare she say that? Through the adjoining wall, laughter starts up again, Friday night carefree. They're laughing at us, you know. I don't think they can hear what we're saying in here, love. I know the sound carries, but you can never make out words. Claire knows that. She's tried listening to next door's conversations with a glass against the wall before now. They don't need to hear us to listen, she says. With a quiet whir, a thrush lands, gently bobbing on the outside window ledge. Drink streaks the freshly painted wall beneath the window before Claire even registers she'd thrown her mug at it. They stay an extra night to wake up with the light and clean and repaint the coffee-streaked pearl grey. Claire was all for leaving it, for going home, then and there without packing or looking back, but Em had insisted, annoyed. One more night. Claire hears tapping on the bedroom window, incessant as a leaking tap, or perhaps she dreams it. Perhaps the tap in the bathroom really is leaking, or perhaps someone next door is tapping on the bedroom wall instead, steadily, all night long. Perhaps someone from next door is tapping on the bedroom window, right there, floating in the conspiring night, just beyond the obscuring grace of the tasteful slate roller blinds. I'll do it, she says, when Em picks up the paint can, yawning. The dust sheets are back, the white curtains taken down, the stain on the paintwork wiped an ugly smeared beige like mould. The whole wall will need doing again, probably more than once, or else it'll look patchy. Don't take it out on me. I'm not. I was tired when I threw it. Those psychos next door. Did you hear tapping on the wall last night? No. Em's tone is tired too. Let's just get this done, then we can leave. Claire paints. The wretched stench of it coats their throats. She pinches the bridge of her nose, putting pressure where her sinuses are, swearing when some paint transfers. It gets everywhere. The smell of it's been ever present during the renovations, but since finishing the redecorating, this unexpected last revisitation makes the fumes seem stronger than ever. After she's startled for the 5th time at a blur of wings landing, curious-eyed, on the window ledge outside, level with her face as she crouches, Claire gives up on the aid of daylight and shuts the slat blinds. Doesn't stop the noise, though. The clockwork whir, fast as shuffled playing cards. The tiny taps. The little hop, hop, hop of claws on stone. That's my bit done.
Wow. I think I'm going to have you do the entire audiobook. I love the way you read that. That was amazing. And I love this story because of the suburban panic. I mean, if you've ever owned a home, if you tried to sell a home, it's so relatable that you can't help but be obsessed with your neighbors. Especially when they're weird. Thank you so much for reading that. I am now going to kick you out of the studio. And I'm going to bring in our next author so that I can introduce him properly. Let's see, Zach, we're not seeing you right now. Let me remove and add back. There we are. There you are. Okay.
Can you see me, hear me?
I see you, hear you. Perfect. Zachary Kellyan is a writer, publisher, editor, and lover of literature. His support for Hawaiian sovereignty and his years of work in education in Hilo, Hawaii inspired his horror story, Predators of Paradise, which we're going to get a little taste of. He is currently putting the finishing touches on his debut novel with the support of his incredible wife, Amy, and their perfect son, Nirvan. And I will agree he is perfect. I've seen him on social media. So you are correct, Zach. I am going to put some links in the chat for everybody. And Zach, go ahead and start when you want.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for having me. And I do apologize ahead of time for not having Di's lovely speaking voice, but I will do my best. I'm going to start right in the middle of the story. So just to bring you up to speed, in real life here in the United States, we have a lot of tech billionaires who are quietly and legally questionably taking indigenous Hawaiian lands. Some of them own entire Hawaiian islands now. In this fictional story, a social media billionaire with the initials MZ is doing the same thing. And Hawaii is starting to fight back. The owls were just outside his bedroom window. It was well past 3 a.m., and Mark Zwillinger was rigid in his bed, legs entangled in a fretful whirl of Egyptian sateen. His body ached from lack of movement, his eyes dry from staring at the spectacle outside. The only sounds, the pervasive calls of the coqui frogs, themselves aliens to this land, another kind of invasive species. But Zwillinger was fixated only on the three familiars who'd come to visit him now at the witching hour. Owls in form, but acting like no kind of bird he'd ever encountered. Just like the accusing owl behind the backstabbing reporter that morning, like the invasion of what could have been owls the night before along the seashore. Now he was faced with three more of them, just on the other side of the glass. Craven eyes, cold gazes, kabuki white faces floating spectral in the darkness. He retrieved his phone from the bedside table and began calling one of his newest contacts. He let the phone ring until it reached voicemail, hung up, dialed the same number again. On the third call, the weary voice of the director of the Nature Conservancy answered. Mr. Zwillinger, I appreciate you calling my home number so early in the morning. He said nothing, watching the ghoulish faces of the owls bob and hover, worried what they might do if he took his eyes off them for even a moment. The tired voice continued. Your assistant already reached out to me to expect a call from a local magazine reporter. We promised to stay on message about your charitable giving. It's been such a game changer for our organization, and I'm seeing these owls outside my home, Zwillinger said in baleful monotone. All the time now. There are three of them currently at my bedroom window. It's like they want to be let in. The man stammered on the other end, a reaction Zwillinger found almost refreshing. In his experience, the only people more inauthentic than entrepreneurs like himself were major gift officers after his money. But all it took was a panicked inquiry in the dead of night to uproot a genuine human response from this particular gift officer. Zwillinger didn't care if he sounded crazy. He wanted answers. He continued. They don't even move like birds should. It's almost like they're convulsing, flying straight into windows. You called me at this hour to discuss owl behavior? It's my name that's going atop your headquarters, and my wealth that will be paying for your salary for the next few years. So yes, I'm calling to ask you about birds. His internal muscle memory reverted back to the boardroom. Or is there someone else I should be calling? Was that whole line about being the most foremost nature conservatory on the island just a lie you fed me? Just a reason to add another zero to the check? A long pause. He wondered if the gift officer had fallen back asleep, but when he came on the line again, it seemed he was of much sounder mind. Are they short-eared owls? I have no idea. About 1.5 feet tall, beige and black. Do their faces look angry all the time? Most definitely, yes. The man from the Big Island Nature Conservancy sighed. I'm no expert myself. I can put you in touch with one when the sun comes up. But I have actually heard about what you're experiencing, specifically with the Hawaiian short-eared owl. They're calling it SOS, Sick Owl Syndrome. This behavior is well documented. No one knows what's causing it. started soon after the habitat started being commercially developed. It could have something to do with pesticide toxicity. Some people say it's the cognitive effects of light pollution on the species, but we really have no idea. All we know is that for the past couple of years, it hasn't been uncommon to see these owls acting strangely, spasming on the sides of the road, almost dancing in odd little groupings. So this is naturally occurring? Zwillinger heard what sounded like the tip of a talon drag across the glass. Well, it's precisely because it isn't natural that's got people so worried. Thankfully, with financial support like yours, Zwillinger hung up and activated the smart glass, turning the translucent window an opaque black in under a second. The demonic faces were obscured, but for the rest of the night, he could hear their talons against the window, like fingernails on a coffin lid, scratching in time to the music of the coquille. And I'll end there.
I love this one, and people are saying in the chat that they're loving the premise, and I did too. I mean, it's so timely with the ecological horror, and especially with I don't want to get political, but Hawaii, the things we've seen in the news. So, what a perfect story for this collection. I thank you so much for allowing me to publish this story, Zach, and for doing your reading. And now, after being nice to you, I'm going to throw you out. Okay, and now I'm going to bring in our next reader and give her proper introduction. Leen Ratz lives in Belgium. She runs a copywriting business, writing mostly about nature, landscapes, and history. She self-published books in Dutch and won writing contests in Belgium and the Netherlands. Her publications include Pleiades, 34 Orchard, Cranag, and Rothello Review, and I probably butchered everything but 34 Orchard in that one. Ever since the day, and it must have been somewhere in the early 90s, she first put a poem on a piece of paper, her life has a clear purpose, making this world just a little more beautiful through writing, and you're going to see that when she starts to read. I'll put some information in the comment box for you. And Leen, whenever you're ready, go ahead and start.
Okay, thank you so much for having me here, and thanks for everyone who's watching. Okay, so our neighbor's dog has been quiet for the entire evening, and now she decided to bark, but I hope it doesn't interfere too much. Merel's obsession with birds began on April 12, 1992. On the chilly morning of that Sunday, she was playing in the hallway of the house where her father had lived since he divorced her mother. Every other week, she would spend a weekend there with her Game Boy, a remote control car, and a handful of My Little Ponies. When her father entered the hallway and carefully avoided her gaze, she knew what he was about to tell her. She cringed on the cold floor tiles. Her thin black hair fell in front of her face. She shielded her head from the bomb that was about to fall. She didn't look up when her father's voice, so much softer than usual, said, "Your mom died last night." At 3 o'clock, she was startled by her own voice. Did she really say that out loud? Her dad remained silent for a moment. How do you know? She removed her hands from her head and stroked the brown, gray, and blue rivers on the white floor tiles with her chubby little fingers. Marble, she would later discover. The rivers were nothing more than impurities in the limestone from which the marble was formed, under the influence of immense pressure. Sometimes destructive forces create the most precious things. Just a guess, she said. There was no point in telling him how she had suddenly woken up that night, peering into the darkness at the familiar shadow in front of the closet, her heart beating fast and irregularly. How the alarm clock beamed 3:01 in red letters. How she turned on the lamp on the nightstand, the dim light barely strong enough to dispel the shadows. How she felt an immense pressure on her chest. How a sound at the window caught her attention. A bird singing at this hour of the night? How she took a pair of socks from her green travel bag on the chair beside the bed. How the cold of the towels penetrated the thin fabric of her Minnie Mouse socks. How she opened the thick brown curtain just far enough to see the bird sitting on her windowsill, a female blackbird. How she stood there until the cold beckoned her back to bed. How she slipped back into the warmth of her blankets when she suddenly knew it, with the same certainty with which she knew she loved white chocolate mousse. How she told herself it was her imagination playing tricks on her. Her imagination that, according to her father, teachers, and aunt's secret, was far too vivid for her own good. But now, on this cold hallway floor, she knew her feelings had been right. The cancer won. Later that day, she sat on the lawn in the narrow city garden of what would become her new home. It was still too cold to sit on the ground, but it didn't bother her. Today, nothing bothered her. She had to get used to loneliness and discomfort. She had to face this cruel, empty world with her head held high. Weakness was no longer an option.
Wonderful. It's interesting. We were talking about poetry before we logged on, and you're writing so lyrical, and the way you're reading it, it felt very poetic to me. It was
Thank you.
a wonderful read. Thank you so much, Lee. Really appreciate it. All right, let's keep moving on, shall we? We're doing really good with these readings. Let me introduce our next author. Celia Janelle has been blessed with an active imagination and a love of story since she was little and was convinced fairies lived in nearby forests and vampires lurked in the abandoned barns outside of towns. It only got weirder from there. Her current standalone titles include Visiting Hours, Reflections from the Shadow Realm, Holly and Ivy, The Ruins of St. Louis, Candles, and The Inheritance. She's had stories published in various magazines, including The Dread Machine, Electric Speck, 34 Orchard, Underland Arcana, and Parabnormal, and anthologies including The Old Ways Volume 2 by Erie River Press. So I will be putting links for you in the comment box of where you can continue to follow her after this event is over. And Celia, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elaine. Happy to be a part of this. I will clarify, it's hard for everyone. It's Celia Janelle. Just think of Come Sail Away with Me from the Styx song. That's how I usually say it. So a little context about this story. I'm going to drop you a little bit further into the beginning, so we'll need some exposition. Picture the most perfect, picturesque kingdom, fantasy farmland in a fantasy realm you could ever think of. It's all dead. It's been cursed. Everything's barren. Crops are dead. People have moved out. Farms are gone. Near this, there is a dark, dark woods. Maybe the death comes from the woods. Maybe it doesn't. In the middle of all this is the city kingdom of Erie. It is proud, big towers, lots of businesses, a strong wall around it. But now also around it are these massive brambly vines with thorns, making it a cage or a nest, if you will. So our main character, Avis, is from Erie. She left 10 years ago for her own reasons, and now she has returned on a summons to free Erie from this curse, whether she wants to or not. And right where I'm picking up, her coven sister, because when she left, she went to learn magic. So she's been part of this coven for the past 10 years. Her younger coven sister, Fawn, has suddenly shown up. She was not expecting this. So we shall see what happens. Brief content warnings for very brief animal deaths near the end. Some implication of power imbalances that unfortunately are still relevant today. So the word home conjured emptiness. The thought of the coven twisted painfully in my chest. They'd taken me in, given me everything. Even though this was a permitted quest, I couldn't return, even if Corvin let me. I gave Fawn a long look. How did you even find me? She shrugged. The birdsong said you needed aid. Birdsong? It had taken years for me to not tense at every trill and whistle that came from the trees. I couldn't catch all of it, but it spoke of danger. I'm relieved to find you in one piece. The morning breeze made the hem of her dress and her curls dance in the sunlight. I felt absolutely filthy in comparison, though that wasn't new. Fawn wasn't ready for so difficult a task, though there were ways she could still be useful. Nature magic wasn't my forte, guarded as I was. Fawn wielded it as easy as breathing and displayed her feelings for the world to see. I'd often been told that emotions were a valuable conduit for magic, but distancing myself was what I knew. It was probably the only reason Coven Mother allowed me this quest. I'm hard to keep down. I adjusted the curve of a rune in the dust. She observed my work with scrutiny, nodding at the barrier I laid out. Hopefully you'll rub off on me. You don't want to be like me. To survive because you're out of choices. I nodded to the looming monstrosity. This place taught me to be that way. Fawn's head tilted like the gentle animals she protected. My people have no name, I continued. We have no known homeland, but there's a long history of finding a place we like, ingratiating ourselves to it, and taking it over. We're survivors. Every city or town we nest in is airy. This has been airy for many generations. Our symbol has long been the starling, for we too learned to get what we want from being invasive. The younger witch's gaze was considering. She was unfamiliar with the runes, but wouldn't admit it. What happened to this place? Maybe Corvin finally pissed off the wrong traveler. Maybe taxes on the land became too high and someone took action. People tend not to like it when their land is taken over and they're subjugated to serfdom. Corvin? City leader, though he practically crowned himself king. Word was sent, and I have reason to give aid. Give was a charitable word. That blasted summons had dragged me back to a life I'd worked hard to forget. Fawn frowned. You swore yourself entirely to the Coven, as do we all. I thought you'd separated from your old life. Mention of the Coven almost made me pause. Sometimes one doesn't get a choice. Corvin's message had been very clear. I'd burned the summons, but the words were etched in my mind. You will never escape my eyes, no matter how far you fly, little bird. However, beloved Aerie has befallen on hard times. Free the city, and I will release you from your obligation. Fail or flee, and the nest you found for yourself will burn, and I will add your flock to my aviary. You will serve your city by serving me in my bed. I'd hoped he'd given up on me. Hoped news I had power deterred him. He'd found me somehow, and the skill that had been a blessing was now a damning lure. It was one thing to drag me back, but threats to the Coven made my blood burn. Fawn extended a hand, incantation on her lips. Don't, I warned. This can't be undone with a release spell. There are souls trapped there, she protested, and something animal but not, a fairy story gone wrong. Her insight was strange, but I had other things to focus on. I opened the cage on my hip, pulled out the bird within. The starling and I glared at each other with mutual disdain. The starling isn't just a symbol. Aerie is lax about laying them roost wherever, one of the many things I'm glad to be rid of. Fawn's affront was clear. How can you hate a little bird? Memories whispered in harsh voices in the flutter of wings. They're obnoxious, inescapable. They devour food sources and they're so loud. The fact I'd been able to meet this one had been a blessing. Its beady eyes glared at me amongst dark feathers. I caught it the day after I received Corvin's summons. The birds I'd grown up with weren't particularly trainable, but I wouldn't have doubted if somehow they'd been made spies. I'd seen stranger in my ears. The first flick of the knife in the air released the silencing spell. The narrow beak opened to release huffy chirps and warbles. The spide feathers at its throat puffed in and out. The call was echoed on the other side of the mass in a chaotic litany. Hundreds of trapped starlings sang the familiar birdsong of my childhood. I could have gone another 10 years without it. It's so loud, Fawn yelled, hands over her ears as the warbles raised to shrieks. There must be 100 at least, if not more. How this all had happened was a mystery. The fact that Corvin had even gotten word out was astounding. "Corvin, be you in there?" I demanded, though I didn't want to know. Well, I wasn't the most proficient at wordless magic, and enhancing my volume was easy enough. The words rippled over the din. The starling in my fist dipped down to a different sound, from a different memory. A hungry, yearning moan. Stop. Revulsion bloomed in my stomach. To my horror and shame, it was echoed by its brethren, until the air was filled with awful, lusty grunts, accented by the flutter of wings, and sent me back in time to dark trees and a strange nest within them. Stop! Stop! The second flick of the knife slashed across the bird's throat. The corpse fell from my hand, and with a few commands, the blood trickled into the rivulets I'd drawn, slowly spanning outward. Good riddance. I didn't bother to gauge Fawn's expression. I knew her well enough. You can be disappointed all you like. I don't have your easy connection with the world. Sometimes blood is needed, innocent blood preferred. The brunette stared in disapproval, but finally nodded. If you say so, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'd missed her warmth. Fawn was generous and forgiving when she didn't have to be. I suppose we should get to it. I doubt that small offering is enough if it's as you say. I nodded, nervously twisting the fabric of my tunic in my hand. You're right. Fawn frowned, frustrated and perplexed. She was well-meaning, naive, and innocent. A terrible combination given the situation. Everything else is dead from the curse. What would you have me do, Avis? Stand still. And we'll just leave it there.
Whoa. Well, the good news is, Sela, you are just as imaginative as an adult as you were as a child. You didn't lose any of that imagination. And I think, I began this session by saying how diverse the stories are. I hope the audience is picking up on that. Like, we have some dark fantasy, we have some ecological horror, we have some psychological horror, we have old school horror. We have everything in this book. It's like a buffet. There's something for everybody. So thank you, Sela. I'm going to have you removed from our studio, and I'm going to bring in our next author and introduce her. Christy Park Kulski is a Hawaiian-born Korean-American author, historian, and career vampire of patriarchal tears. Channeling a lifelong obsession with history and the morose, she's the author of the Gothic horrors Fairest Flesh and House of Pongsu. And that's where I was first introduced to Christy, was House of Pongsu, and what an amazing book that is. She's also the editor of the Asian Diaspora Folk Horror Anthology Silk and Sinew, which we did have a shout out for that on our Friday night session. Janice Flynn was an author in Silk and Sinew, and she talked about it a little bit and gave it a little thumbs up. But it's listed on NYPL's Best New Horror for 2025. Christy bartered 9 years of her life to the U.S. Navy and Air Force, and later taught college history. Trapped by a force field, she currently resides in the woods of northeastern Ohio, where she probably brews potions and talks to ghosts. So I will drop her social media into the chat. Christy, go ahead and begin reading whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thanks for having me for this and arranging all of this. I wanted to give a quick content warning for child death, okay? The story is Magpie Teeth. The most painful lies are the ones we tell ourselves. The most shameful are the ones we know aren't true, but stubbornly believe because they are easier, comforting. Lies that justify are ones that allow us to escape blame. In my village, our lie is shared. Single vines of family tragedy making up a big tangled knot. Generations of them, linked by grief or even guilt. We don't acknowledge or talk about it because if we did, the illusion would fade. The fear and sorrow and shame would become unbearable. You must understand it's complicated, even frustrating. We are all innocents, yet operate like villains at the same time. Look out there in the field. There's a girl. Long midnight hair whipping in the wind. She moves like a dancer through rows of cabbages. I call her Minsuk, my sister's name. But she's not, though she responds to it, sleeps on younger sister's mat, comes home to eat and talks as if she is Minsuk, but she isn't. I'm not entirely sure she's even human. The truth is, Minsuk is dead and has been for 10 years. The people of my village, we consider ourselves particularly beloved by the mountain we live under. We believe we are blessed, special, because once a child gives their first baby tooth to the magpies to take to Grandfather Mountain, they are safe from death until they reach adulthood. Other villages give the magpies their baby teeth too, but only ours reach the mountain. Only ours protects our children. When the magpies made themselves a bridge to unite the star-crossed lovers once a year, they formed much more than just a way for the lovers to be together. They created a passage between worlds, a way for the dead and the living, if they loved each other enough, to unite once again, Grandmother had once said. Is that how they do it? I asked. Grandmother adjusted the sack of rice on her back. Do what? I gulped, eager for knowledge. Keep children from dying. A thoughtful line formed between her brows. I suppose it is. I was young, and it was before Minsuk became dead, during the time we still ran, played, and laughed together. Younger sister, let's pretend to be magpies, I called to her. And how she giggled. Smiling wide, sharing infectious joy. Even though Minsuk was younger, she had always seemed to know herself, to be confident and bold in all the ways I wished I could be. If I was a magpie, I would soar up and unto Grandfather Mountain's nose. Minsuk spread her arms wide and ran a circle. I would say, look at all the people below in the fields. Me too, I said, pretending the same. Look, there's a child tossing a tooth onto their roof. Oh, the mountain will be so happy. Minsuk pretended to swoop in and snatch it up. Grandmother's lips pursed as if she doubted the claim, but I thought I knew better. You see, I had watched it happen. The shaman's daughter, Su Yi, just the summer before, had taken terribly ill with sickness spirits. She had wasted away, tittering so very close to death. But they couldn't take her. At least that's what I believed. I thought I knew the rules, thought I understood. But believing didn't help Minsuk. When the sickness spirits came to our village in the autumn, we had tried to hide younger sister away, tried to keep her far from the scurry of their anima, searching for bodies to destroy, concealed so their seed eyes couldn't see her. But it wasn't enough, and the sickness spirits relish a tragedy, especially one that happens at their hands. She has not lost her first tooth, the shaman said, lifting Minsuk's lips and studying younger sister's fever-ridden mouth. It was half a question and half a grumble. She already knew the answer, of course. Every single person in the village knew which children had passed that particular benchmark. Su Yi hovered nearby like a beautiful doll, motionless, waiting on her mother's orders. When she looked at me, it was like the gaze of a fish, empty of greater purpose, existing only to be directed. No, Grandmother said, tears thick in her throat. Her baby teeth are stubborn, like long, gnarled, deep-rooted trees refusing to move. The shaman nodded. I will prepare a ritual, but these spirits are strong. The sickness comes from the north on a wind of conquest. They come to destroy. Resoaking the cloth, I squeezed what water I could into younger sister's parched mouth. Like a weak chick, she lifted her head, reaching blindly with her lips for the source of moisture. And sometimes she woke up long enough to mouth words and stare at empty spaces before slipping back into fever-spun dreams. No more running or playing. Weakness had already taken her energy, but long before that, her smiles. Darkness gathered in the corners of our house, watching and waiting for an end we knew lurked, but clung to hope to avoid. I listened to Minsuk's ragged breathing in the darkness, to the fretting footfalls and whispered prayers of grandmother, a melody of sorrow for those of us who knew the end came soon and could do little to stop it. And I drifted to sleep to the lullabies of death. In my dreams, I found the shaman's daughter under the stars, gaze fixed on the mountain, something caught in her throat, a bulge along the neckline like a slender snake having just swallowed a mouse. Darkness washed over me, thick and clotted like well-cured gochujang, dripping over me, into me, until I became one with it, as much as part of the night as it was part of me. I moved upon the wind over the creature we call Suyi and watched without eyes. It doubled over suddenly and soundlessly, her body working hard to empty her insides, straining in her labor, face reddening, veins bulging at the temples. She undulated, diaphragm rising and falling until finally from her mouth fell a wet, sticky collection of twigs and leaves. And once she finished, a messy, glittering pile lay before her on the ground. From the moment the edges of the night took flight, magpies swooped in, collecting the regurgitated pieces, grasping the material in their claws and beaks, wings spreading to jump back into the darkness, bringing their findings back into the trees. In the morning, Minsuk's first baby tooth loosened and broke free. A miracle, it seemed. Had Grandfather Mountain been watching over us, ensuring we had this blessing and protection? Had he seen our suffering and worry and extended his mercy? Minsuk even stirred, a glimmer of her eyes showing as she peeked between heavy lids. Older sister. I'm here, Minsuk. I've been here all along. Those were the last words we ever said to each other. And I'll stop there.
Wow. What a beautiful story. And I love how you weave the lore throughout it. You're getting a lot of love in the comments for it. It is wonderful. Thank you so much, Christy. I will have you back on at the end. You'll get to see everybody again. And, as you've seen, these stories are just wonderful, beautiful, lyrical. They have poignant messages. And as I was sort of gathering them and editing them, I was like, man, I really wish, I hope, I want dessert. I talked about the buffet. I want some dessert. I want something to grab me by the shoulders and just shake me and boy, did I manifest something. So let me bring our final author to the stage. If you get shook too, let me introduce him. Rob Francis is an academic and writer based in London. He mainly writes short fantasy and horror, and his stories have appeared in magazines including The Arcanist, Apparition Lit, Metaphorosis, Tales to Terrify, and Weird Horror magazine. Rob has also had stories published in various anthologies, including Alternative War, The Old Ways, and Cost of Living. And I'll put his social media in the chat for everybody. Rob, take it away.
Thank you, Elaine, and thanks everyone. Quite hard to follow all those great readings, so I'll have a go. Just as a bit of context for my story, so the teenage protagonist Roisin and her dad are duck hunting on their eccentric neighbour's farm, and the farmer is nicknamed Skinflint, and that's why this story is called Skinflint's Block. And it's a bit more pulpy than some of the others, not quite as beautifully written, I think. So, they passed through an orchard, apple and cherry trees heavy with fruit, their rotten fallings bursting underfoot. The air was thick with the sweet smell of decay. Roisin could hear the honking of ducks now, not too far away. The lake's close now. Roisin swallowed. Her heart beat a little faster as she wiped her sweating palms on her trousers. They stopped at the edge of the wood. The lake stretched before them, its surface green with algae. Reeds and rushes sprouted from the lake edge, merging with the long grass, so that it was hard to tell where the field ended and the lake began. But the ducks were there. Someone had set up a long table in the lake shallows, and the birds were fussing around something atop it. Their plumage was orange with yellow streaks, their bills a dark red. As Roisin watched, they hopped back and forth, pecking away. At first, she thought the thing on the table was a pig carcass, flesh pale but covered with rivulets of blood. Then she saw the blonde hair and beard. The ducks screwed their beaks deep into the flesh, then threw their heads back, swallowing what they'd torn off. A naked man capered near the ducks, half naked at least. He wore an incomplete costume, his right arm a long wing, and his left bare, except for a taloned glove at the end. His chest was covered in white down, while both legs were yellow scaled, terminating in wide flippers. His face was the most disturbing part of the ensemble, as his lips were wide and rigid, and pursed into a makeshift bill, while his nose was no more than 2 elliptical slits. As he danced back and forth, his pale root of a penis flapped against his stomach and thighs. Dad turned to her, eyes wide. "Skinflint," he whispered. Then, "Jesus." Roisin looked again. This time, she wasn't all that sure it was a costume. The man on the table gurgled something, and Skinflint stopped his cavorting. He padded over to the man, webbed feet slapping up spray from the grass with each step. His taloned hand reached out to the man, then twisted to seize one of the blood-covered ducks, its beak still dripping viscera. Skinflint tipped back his head and held the duck over it. He opened his elongated lips, mouth yawning wide. The duck shuddered and laid a pale orange egg, which disappeared into Skinflint's mouth. He swallowed. The duck returned to feeding. Roisin gave an involuntary yelp, and Skinflint's head snapped up. She pressed herself to the ground. The rich earth scent was strong in her nostrils, the grass still wet enough to stick to her cheeks. The only sound was the frenzied feeding of the ducks. She raised her head a little. Skinflint was padding towards the trees, eyes rolling, a faint grunting coming from his throat. His bill lips clacked with each step. Dad crouched in the grass and fired the Beretta, both barrels of birdshot, the gun's roar startling the ducks and setting them to flight. Skinflint staggered and almost fell. Black blood ran in a dozen tiny channels across his chest and wing. He raced towards Dad, hissing with fury. Dad dropped the gun and rushed to meet him, fists up and his face a mask of terrified ferocity Roisin had never seen. She heard the metallic shriek of the man-trap before she realised what it was, heard the snap as it bit deep into Dad's leg. Momentum carried him forwards to land at Skinflint's webbed feet. He screamed and reached for the twisted man-thing in front of him. Skinflint jumped and came down hard on Dad's back. Quacking happily, he began to caper, his feet slamming into Dad, the edges ripping his clothes, pushing his face into the mud. Roisin pulled the stolen shells from her pocket and raced to the Beretta. Overhead, the ducks were circling lower, getting ready to land. She glanced at the man on the table. He wasn't moving. Hands shaking, her fingers moving slower than she could have imagined, she loaded the shotgun. Skinflint turned to Roisin just as the ducks began to drop. She held her breath, aimed, and fired. Skinflint's head disintegrated in a burst of pulp and bone. His downy chest puffed up for a moment, his wing arm fanned the air, and then his headless body flopped to the ground by her dad. The ducks swung back into the morning sky, shrieking their rage. Roisin's world took on a vibrancy she'd never imagined. The sky opened wide and high above her, and she thought she might be drawn up there into the endless blue. Every nerve screamed with joy at what she'd done. Dad lifted his head, sucking in air, then releasing it again in a long howl. "Get this off me!" Roisin came back to herself. She dropped the gun and ran to her dad. The trap was old, the mechanism rusted. It had closed enough to tear muscle, but there was still a gap she could get her fingers in. She pushed as hard as she could, and after a few moments the jaws opened enough that Dad could slip his leg out before it closed again. "Is it broken, Dad?" "I don't think so." Blood was soaking into his trousers, but it didn't look as bad as Roisin had feared. "Let's get you to a hospital. Where's your phone? I'll call an ambulance." "Not yet. There's something else we need to do first. Help me up." And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Oh, Rob, ducks never creeped me out until now I can't look at a duck again. Thank you so much for that reading. It really was wonderful. I love your story. And thank you so much for giving this story to this anthology. People are talking about how they felt like they were there while you were reading. So you can look at those comments. I'm going to start bringing everyone back to the stage because that was our final reading. And we are, getting close to the top of the hour. I do like to end at that time. So what I'm going to do is just find out what is next for everybody. So Rob, since we just ended with you, do you want to start? Where can people find you next, or what projects are you working on, or what would you like to promote?
So I'm working on a few different things, but I'd like to promote, if possible, the new anthology Fever Dreams edited by Mark Morris. This is in Flame Tree Press's A to Z of horror that they do every year. And there's loads of great authors in here, but I managed to get a story in this year, which was really, really exciting for me. So that came out last month. So I'd just like to promote that if possible, because that's a really great. My story, The Sitter, is in that, so that's a really great thing for people to pick up. And yeah, I won't say too much because I know everyone else wants to chip in with things. So, but yeah, thank you again for inviting me along.
Of course, and that looks wonderful, that book. Lean, what about you? What's coming next?
Yeah, I've just finished writing a thriller, which I'm hoping to get published. It's in Dutch right now, but I'm hoping to get it translated and published as well. And I'm also working on a bilingual poetry collection, so with the Dutch poem next to the English translation. So.
Oh, that sounds great. Wow. Sela, what about you?
Thank you. So this is kind of a period of rebranding, reinventing myself as I get back to it from a lot of stuff in life. But I just released last month Visiting Hours, Reflections of the Shadow Realm. This is kind of my greatest hits of my short fiction since like 2011. It's a lot of different things, a lot of horror, dark fiction, dark fantasy. There's the Sherlock Holmes and space story, vampire stuff. There's a lot of different stuff. You can also, I feel like everyone in this anthology can play 6 Degrees of Salem with this, because there's a piece originally from an Erie River project that I think Holly Cornetto edited. There's some stuff that I worked with Nina that I know other people have worked with. There was a piece that was in 34 Orchard that I know Christy really loves. It's in it. So there's a lot of different stuff, and I'm really very proud of it. So I'm excited for this.
Wonderful. Christy, what about you? What's coming up?
Hi. So of course I know Genevieve plugged it, but Silk and Sinew, it came out this year. It is a collection of folk horror from the Asian diaspora. It's been a really rewarding anthology. This year I'm the editor. It's my first experience editing, so it's been received pretty well, and I'm so proud of all the authors in it and what they've brought. I know you know how that feels, Elaine.
Yes.
So what am I working on now? I hope I have big news soon that I can't share yet. I'm struggling through another novel that I'm having a fight with, and working on putting together a collection.
Okay, very good. Zach, what about you? Zach might be frozen.
Sorry, hopefully you can hear me. I was having some audio issues.
I can hear you right now. Go
Being
ahead.
a new dad, as you guys learned, that's kind of been a full-time job for the past year, but I've been lucky enough to carve out some time, and I'm on kind of another developmental edit of my first novel. So that hopefully will come out if anyone ever wants to buy it in the near future. But just kind of focusing on that, focusing on all the wonderful and horrific things about being a new dad. Pleasure to be with you guys today.
And last but not least, James, what's going on with you?
Hi. I'm working on the folk horror novella, which also involves birds. So I'm working on that. I'm hoping to have a collection out next year, which I'll put more information on. Basically, if you go to my website, I have a blog where I update stuff. So it's diebooth.wordpress.com. And I've got quite a few short stories coming out this year in various anthologies, like that have all ended up sort of at the end of the year. So all of my information's on there. And if you're local to Chester, there's a really good bookshop called Books on the Walls that opened this year. And that's just an amazing bookshop, and they actually stock my books like in a brick and mortar shop. So I'd recommend going there if you're ever in the area. I think that's it.
Sounds great. So, audience, I put links in the chat so you can continue to follow these wonderful authors as they continue with their illustrious careers. I appreciate everyone being here today. As you know, the godmother grants you wishes, but she also makes requests and makes wishes of her own. So for today, the godmother's wish is that the week ahead, I know we're all in different time zones, but we are all starting a week, whether we're in the studio or watching, that the week ahead contains more wonders than you can even count. Remember, your godmother loves you. Thank you for being here, and we're going to end the stream now.